everybody, my name is Chris, I work at Stillalive Studios and I run a Discord server dedicated to all topics game development. We had another terrific collaboration with Heart Machine. We already had a sound challenge where we redid the sounds for the Hyperlight Breaker trailer.
Wow, that was a hit, and it's like if there's too many of them, you're like, you take it for granted, even though every single one is amazing.
And now we came back and rescored the Hyperlight Breaker trailer with our own music for our competition. And the amazing thing is that Joel CORELITZ joined our session, the original composer of the Hyperlight Breaker trailer music, and feedbacked all of our entries. There were 24 entries. We looked at all of them. There's a lot to learn, and we had a great time. Let's go.
I'm thinking of running this like a critique, although I should ask you what works.
I mean, last time it was pretty much like a critique or like very in-depth analysis of what we could do. So I'm really happy with what you're comfortable with.
Sure.
I also teach sound design at the University of the Arts in Zurich. So,
great.
This is right up our alley. So I'll let you take the lead. I'm just here to host and to be here and to marvel at everything that is being said and enjoy the show. That's basically what I'm here for.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to hear what everyone did.
Did you listen to them or not? Because we thought, it would be nice if we would get like.
I thought we would do it live.
Yeah, that is great. Amazing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
No,
That's cool.
And so you'll get a fresh take.
Yep.
For me. And I'm happy to talk about, like, I don't need to, you've all heard what I did. I'm not going to evaluate anything or react to anything based on what I did.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm happy to talk about how I approached it. I'd also love to hear about how all of you approached it. I should say, because I don't want to make this about me talking. I'd love to hear from most of you. That said, I did want to kind of preface this whole experience and kind of this conversation with saying that this is a really hard task. It is very rare to basically create now, assuming that I'm not assuming that everyone created something thematic at the end, but to have kind of a thematic melody and identity piece be created at the very beginning of a development process is very rare. More often than not, I find that it evolves organically out of establishing a design language, living with it for a while, and then usually approaching. I mean, because what I did for this is sort of like a main menu theme. It might be the first time. It's definitely a rare occurrence for me to do that first. So if you came up with something for this, you've done something I think really hard. So congrats.
Well, we'll listen to them.
Yeah,
I'm sure we get some insights. Well, I can tell you a little bit about our challenges. I mean,
sure. Yeah, I would love to hear.
The server we have is just born out of, we're a game studio. I work at Stillalive in Austria. We do games as well. We're not really successful, but we love what we do. Yet. Great. So we're working on our game development skills, but we grew and we have established. I created the server because I teach at the university, and I really like how, just sharing the knowledge. It's all about sharing the knowledge, talking to people, inspiring people, helping them along the way. And I thought, I have done this for a class. Why not bring it to a Discord server? So I created this. I get a little bit of time to run this, and we do some challenges, because in daily live, you have rarely the chance to just sit down and say, let's create something fresh, something new, something. We're always deadlines and you have to do the next thing. And so we have these bi-weekly challenges every 2 weeks where I post a clip and then everybody makes up their thoughts and tries to come up with music for that clip. And we kind of set a rule of do it in 1 hour.
That's great. Yeah.
It rarely ends up being an hour these days, but we're kind of like an hour, 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. Some put even more
even
time into it,
3 is-
depending.
Yeah.
Depending on how.
I love that process. That really resonates with me. I think so much of what we do for audio and games it's about assessing the function of a piece. And I think the best way to do that is to just not overthink it. And sometimes imposing a time limitation is
exactly
the best way to do that.
Because then you can make a cut and move on. You learned a thing. If you spend 2 more weeks, 3 more weeks, it doesn't add much to that experience. And it's really about the practice. So do something, do it for 2 hours, then the next challenge comes along, new clip, do something else, learn a plugin, learn a technique, look what others did, and then kind of, it's like daily practice. People who play an instrument have to practice daily, and we do that as well in sound design, in music composing. This is kind of the gist of the server.
I think that's great.
Nice. Then, hey, Troupe. We're a nice little group. Kat's here, Dani's here, Alex. I don't know if you guys that are here have the same name as you put into your file on the challenge. So I don't know if you want to go through all of them and look at them, or from the people. Last time, I think we did it for the people who were here. So feel free to, depending on the time that we can look at them who are here. And then if we still have time and we want to look at some more, we could take the ones that we still have in the folder. Cool.
Anything works for me.
So I send you the link. Should I share the movies, or do you want to open them?
Why don't you go ahead and do it? And
all right.
Yeah, and that way they're all coming from the same place. And
okay.
You know what we do in class? Tell me whether you think this is useful. I like to have the composers make a brief statement, not sort of just to practice what the right amount of prefacing is, because it's really easy to do too much. But I think it's also a nice, if there's a way, particularly because we're going to be hearing all these once and for the first time, anything that can help focus our thoughts or attention about what the concept was. I mean, if there's one thing I've learned teaching a music for games class, it's that there is no one way to do anything. There's a million things that'll work. And we went through a lot of iterations in this trailer. I know, like I said, I mean, the simpler way to say what I was trying to say earlier is it's really hard to make a trailer for a game that doesn't really exist yet, because you're establishing a design language and you're also trying to articulate an idea in that design language. But so there's a lot of ways to do that, and I would love to just hear a little bit about what method you chose, because I think it's far less important to try to, there's no one correct expression of anything, but I think you have to know what you're trying to do. That's all. And so I'd love to hear about what everyone's concept was.
Oh, I'm actually the audio director.
Oh, yes. Right. Oh, sorry. Now I recognize your name.
It's okay. I popped in late. I'm just but I'm more here to observe anyway. So
all right. So Alex, Epton, we have you in the chat. So let's have a look at yours. Can you hear the sound?
Yes.
All right. So Alex, if you could tell a little bit about your thoughts before we go into this.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I can hear you great.
Cool. Okay, so like my 2-sentence explanation is like, I saw the original trailer. I noticed that it had some like kind of synthwave noise detuned synthesizer thing happening, and I was like, cool, I want to do that, but I want to do like Ghost in the Shell or something and just make it violent, but like with that synth wave kind of vibe to it, if that makes sense. That's my preface.
Okay, then let's watch.
And that was rad.
All right, great work, Alex.
So what, Chris, what works? Should I just react?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's helpful for everyone? I mean, I should ask all of you. Is it helpful for me to just react and give you my perspective? And
I think so.
you got to take it with a grain of salt, obviously.
Yeah, definitely.
I did one version of this and in a lot of iterations. So my gut is like the energy and the confidence it's badass, and it's right on for the vibe of this. I think the main thing that I would change if I were to ask for notes, in fact, let's do it like that, because that's kind of what I do in my class, where it's like, all right, if we're going to revise for next week, or if we're theoretically going to revise for next week and we're done with a unit, I give notes as if we were going to revise. I tend to try to give notes more like a developer than a composer, because I don't care what chords you play. I don't care about any of that stuff. I will never tell you what notes to play, even as another composer. I don't think it's useful for what we do, because what we do is functional. So I think that in terms of tone and seeing this character just like, just totally destroy every enemy in this trailer, it's a great energy. I think the main note that I would have is just structure. I think the drop comes in pretty early. And I think if you were going to save it, I think you could save it for after the missile dodge, or even at the actual title reveal, because there's so much action and there's so much density that I think if you put the drop in too early, you run the risk of just too many things competing, which I think you've done a really good job mixing it. And I didn't feel like it was messy or anything, but I do think that there's so much happening here that I think we really have to think about and control what the listener and the viewer is going to be able to digest on one viewing, which, like all of us have probably watched this dozens of times, but most people are going to watch it once. And so I think just having that perspective, and this is probably a note that I give myself, and a note that I will almost always give, is try to keep the perspective of someone who's only going to ever see this once in mind, and just let things breathe, let them unfold slowly, and think about where the musical focus is at any given second. But I think you've got the core, which is that's the most important part, because you can sculpt that however you need to, which is like, it's got great, just like badass energy, for lack of a better term. And it really works for just this violent, just, visceral experience.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for the time. Yeah,
of course. Thanks for having me. This is fun.
My postmortem on it was very similar. It was like everybody else posted their clips, and I was like, ooh, mine really fights with the sound design. Or it could have had a clearer theme, I guess. Like, I don't know. It's just seems like a bunch of stuff strung together, and while it's all good stuff, like maybe it's not as presentable as what you're saying would be desired.
It's also like the grain of salt that I want you to take too is that I know that these are mostly probably a first pass, and it's like what you heard that I did, and I'd be interested actually if any of you didn't hear what I did and just went for it, because that would be really interesting. But mine is not a first pass. Mine is the result of like 50 iterations. So I've been through it. Like we explored this a lot to try to find the best expression. of everything. I think it is also worth keeping in mind, just, you know, thinking about the title, because this is a follow-up. It's a spiritual successor to a well-known title. That should be a big moment, because up until then, aside from the fact that you know what video you clicked on YouTube, you don't see the title yet. So it's a reveal moment.
All right.
Yeah.
Then who else has skin in the game here? Kat, did you make one? I can't find it, so I don't think you have. So let's go with Val. I know he's here. Val, come up to the stage.
Oh, yeah. Hello, hello everybody.
Hey. All right. So
yeah, just as a preface, we firstly did the sound design challenge, which was a ton of fun for me, and I really enjoyed working on that trailer. I thought it had a great energy, so I was very tempted to do the music challenge as well, even though I'm not really interested in music composition that much. But yeah, that was as well a lot of fun, and I think I got one of the free bundles like a couple of months ago from Plugin Alliance, which offered a bunch of Brainworks plugins, including Brainworks Obenhausen or something like that, which is a synth that sounds really great, and I experimented a lot with it. So yeah, I tried to make something a little synthwave, a little retro, and I yeah, really tried to focus on like transition and being impactful in my music. That's about it.
Cool.
Okay.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
then let's give it a listen. All right.
Nice.
Well done.
You know what I realized we're missing in this is the title reveal. Just in general, I think we didn't see it in the last one, did we?
Yeah, that's correct.
I think because it came from the sound design only version.
Oh, okay.
There's no
Exactly.
sound design on the title.
Okay, so it will be structurally different to the actual trailer, because everything is kind of a lead up to the title. But that's fine. So I want to try to evaluate these then, kind of on those terms. The energy's great. I think that my absolute favorite part of this is how you're laying out and kind of like punctuating the dust clearing, and the characters flying through the air and landing. That's my favorite part, because I think that in that moment you are really letting the music and sound design work together really well. And I think the energy, the build, particularly the beginning, how you're setting the stage, it all works great. I think similar note, I think it may get going a little quickly, to the point where I think once you start that kind of like that drum pattern, which is fairly straight, it tends to just want to keep going, and I think it's hard to break it up. I mean, you laid out during one of the bigger moments, which I think works, but I think that could probably come much, much later. I think the sound design is so rich and kind of, and like I said, visceral, and contains so much of the energy in this trailer that it's easy to compete with it. So I would sometimes, you know, I think it's a worthy exercise, and you can do this by just muting stuff just to see, like,
Yeah.
sometimes I question, you know, and it's I'm not even telling you just to mute stuff, but like sometimes it's worth trying, just like, how little can I get away with? Like,
Yeah. I know that.
Working
Like
music
it's the same in sound design as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's
Yeah.
worth like taking out elements and you realize that you don't need that much, in fact.
yeah, and it might be worth trying. I think, you know, it's tough because it's like I'm seeing these once and reacting. So I'm hopefully I'm giving you useful stuff to work with. But I think the main thing is, I think you set the stage really well, and then I think once the beat comes in, it does compete a little bit. I think when when you're really thinking of, like, I can tell when you're really kind of using the sound design as a way to kind of provide just like a flip side to the music. I think that's when this is really working. I would keep pushing it in that direction.
Yeah, my only like big regrets about it is that I probably should have like lowered the mix of the music a little bit to give more room to my sound design, but because like listening it right now, it seems a bit loud.
It's tough. It's like, yeah, I mean, I'm expecting all these mixes to be fairly music. They're all going to be composer mixes.
Yeah, sure.
I call my own mixes composer mixes sometimes, because it's like you're gonna emphasize the part that you just did, because it's natural to do that. Sometimes it does just take, you just have to spend a little time away and then come back and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to take the MIDI down by like 12 dB or something.
Yeah,
that's what's
happening right now.
you're actually working on it. But yeah, I mean, another really great start.
Thanks.
Cool. Any famous last words, Val?
No, thanks. Really appreciate the feedback. That's nice.
Nice. Okay. So who else has something in here? Stiley, do you have one? I don't remember.
Unfortunately, not this time.
Alrighty. Hunter? Yeah, Hunter, you have one. So
Yes.
let's cue you up next. Voila. What's your entry statement?
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of Hyperlight Drifter, and so I wanted to kind of, in the beginning and end, kind of replicate the sound of the original soundtrack, and then in the middle, kind of add my own spin, because obviously the trailer has a lot different of a pace, a lot faster, more action-heavy pace than the original game. So I tried to add my own spin on it. It's my first time composing for a trailer where you have to like time stuff to what the sound design is and to how like the trailer's paced visually. It was very fun to do.
Cool. So
I
let's
love that
get
you're thinking about the sound of the successor. The kind of the musical language and even sort of just the brand of a game is so important in these trailers, and I love that you brought that up.
all right. Then let's listen.
You know what's so cool sometimes about just getting to hear a lot of these back to back and just different approaches is they all, to me, tell kind of like a different story. This completely changes the narrative of this trailer. And my personal interpretation of this and is that this is just like, this is nothing for this character. This is like a walk in the park, just kind of based on this. This is a much kind of lighter approach It's less, you know, it's less like synthwavy and dark, and it's kind of more like positive. It even felt in some ways kind of I don't know, like breezy in a way. And it changes my whole perception of this character. Not the well, of this scene where it's like none of these enemies are a threat in this with this backdrop. This is like a walk in the park. It's a really interesting approach. I think you've definitely captured the spirit of the series in this piece. I think, you know, I can definitely, like, I really appreciate the thought that you put into the fact that this is a hyperlight game, and the trailer feels like a hyperlight game. You know, all that being said, I don't know that this tone is quite the right approach for this particular trailer, but I like how you're thinking about it, and I like that you managed to conjure something that feels related to the series. It's tricky because a trailer is kind of its own thing and sort of stands alone, and also it needs to feel related. It needs to tell a story. It needs to have a certain kind of energy. There's a lot to think about here. But this is a really interesting, unique approach.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you to the people in the chat as well.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of the great things of this challenge, that you get so many different versions. Some really compose something to fit the whole mood and the narration and the trailer as a whole. Some just experiment, and you get, as you said, these different moods and compositions. Some are light, some are very, very heavy, some are way off, but also give kind of an interesting perspective from a totally different side to the whole mix. And I think all the broadening of the horizon, even if it doesn't fit the trailer, it still evokes something in your head, and broadens the sonic horizon, right? This is what I really find fascinating about all these challenges, actually.
Yeah, I agree. This, you know, we'll hear a lot of pieces today, and I think that it'll be interesting a couple days from now to think about which pieces stick out. And they're generally, I found generally that applies to the pieces that took some risks. And like you said, I mean, it might not be necessarily the piece that is like the one that nails it on the first try, which, by the way, is a totally overrated metric, I think. Nailing it on the first try feels good sometimes, but generally, like, you learn nothing from it. And I think sometimes it's better to sort of like take some risks, do something unusual that sticks out, that I think then it's more memorable. And I think that's a good example of a piece that'll stick out.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Chris, you mind if I ask a question really quick? Kind of about the
oh, I'm muted. Yeah, sure.
Just about the kind of the concept of a callback to the original game. I think in the sound design challenge, I asked about this, where Troupe said that there wasn't a whole lot of sonic like carryover from the first game to this one, mainly because of the change from 2D to 3D. But I was wondering, maybe a question for you, Joel, and Alex possibly, is like, is there any carryover in the music? Was that something that you are doing in the actual game? I think you're muted, Joel.
Hear me now?
Yeah, I think I heard you.
I mean, just in terms of the carryover from 2D to 3D?
Oh, just between the titles. How much?
From Drifter and Breaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that's something. It's something I think that's probably, to be fairly transparent, is still somewhat in development. Although for this trailer, it's hard to quantify, but I think our goal was to make it feel like a hyperlight game without making it feel like specifically like Drifter? I know that's a fairly general answer, but I think, but then of course it prompts the question like, well, what does a hyperlight game sound like, and how can we riff on that in a way that's recognizable but also feels original? So that's a huge part of, I think, what we were trying to do in this initial trailer is try to figure out how to expand that musical universe.
I think
something that, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, yeah, I think you captured it well in that, like, it's a hyperlight game, but there's only been one hyperlight game. So what is the second hyperlight game? And if you think about like Mario, like the sound of Mario isn't an NES chip, you know, it's the style of music. And in Mario Galaxy, that can mean it's orchestral, but it's still sort of thematically very obviously Mario. And so I think it's the challenge of like coming up with the second game in the series is actually like the hardest of any. The third game, it'll be like, oh, we've got two examples, you know, but right now we've only got one example. So I feel like I've been really impressed, Joel, with the way that you've like pushed for that hyper lightness without being too reverent to the drifterness, which has been definitely like a tricky thing to find.
Yeah, and yeah, I think you said it really well. I think that the example about the, you know, about kind of Mario isn't about the instruments necessarily or the chip. It's about the spirit, you know, and I think it's similar to any series where you kind of have to figure out what the spirit is and how to conjure it and evoke it in a way that doesn't just feel like you're rewriting the most famous piece from that series. So we sort of had like I guess kind of not a pact, but like we were like, we are not going to just recreate Panacea, like, and we're not going to use riffs from it. You know, but it also, like, there's a certain kind of impressionist tonal sensibility to that piece and a lot of the pieces from Drifter. That's, to me, that's like the perfect territory to mine, because you can create a new piece in that sort of tonal and spirit and have it absolutely translate. And I think the trickiest thing about it sometimes is like, it's really hard sometimes to describe. Like I have a lot of practice talking about music and communicating about music, but I also have enough conversations kind of under my belt to know that like you can have a great conversation about music and have it be totally meaningless because you have to go write something and create something. So I think some of it is we just like, we know it when we hear it. It's like, does this sound breakery to you? You know, it's like, that's sort of a question we've asked each other. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it maybe pushes it too far. So,
but this question is super hard to answer because you said you did this in the beginning and there wasn't a lot of breakery reference.
You're exactly right.
And style, right?
It's a question that was like, to do this first before we've even really kind of gotten a chance to live with what breaker is and what it sounds like. In some ways it was really beneficial because it was a total crash course in like, let's establish something that works for this universe. And all these questions that I'm sort of just bringing up in all the internal thought process, I think is very much what was on the top of our minds as we were working on this.
Yeah, and if I can kind of jump in, like another like complication to it is that you have all these different zones to do, and so they all have to sound distinctly different. And it's almost like what was created for the trailer feels like, you know, pure to the core of like what's fundamentally kind of in place for all of those. And so it's been interesting internally because I'm, you know, I work in sound design and mix and stuff. I'm not working on the music. So I just get to like consume the stuff that you guys are making. And it is it's really interesting to like see the different ways that you're, you know, utilizing that and moving it forward. We keep having to expand into like completely new areas, and you know, the experimentation starts again, you know.
Yeah.
But it's really awesome. Like I feel like there's a good a good base now through the whole game.
Thank you. It's such a big part of what we do as composers. That's why, it's like, that's why a big part of why I kicked this chat off with, acknowledging it. This is hard. Like, we're asking a lot of questions. We're trying to answer a lot of questions. There's a lot of heavy lifting in this 40 seconds of music.
I guess so, yeah.
Thanks so much for your insight on that. That was great. Sorry for the interruption.
No worries, Adam. I really love all the discussions. They're so cool. Good, then let's move on to Danilo Kapel. He's here as well with us in the Zoom. Danilo, what's your intro?
Hey, first, thanks, Joel, for doing this.
Oh, my pleasure.
My intro is that I tried not to be influenced by anything from the previous game, and I wanted to score it as a video game trailer, not a hyperlight trailer, if that makes sense. So I just focused on the beats, and I wanted to add like some sense of levity and fun to it, because it seems very, very fun and animated. So that was my focus, and the aesthetic, the visual aesthetic, I just tried to embody that. So
That's great.
Okay, then let's listen.
That's really nice. I think I really appreciate hearing your concept too, and I think that what you did is absolutely valid. I think in some ways it does make sense to approach this like just as a trailer, and what you did works. And I think the irony of it is that it does sound related. Like this sounds in the universe enough that I totally like. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like it could be in the Hyperlight universe. And I think that you did such a good job of like, I appreciate the idea that you use the word levity. There's just enough. Like you didn't go, it's not too much, but it's enough to kind of keep it fun. It makes it seem like kind of almost like a really tightly choreographed dance, which is really a cool kind of vantage point for or interpretation of this. I feel like this is maybe just me. I'm probably just going to nitpick a little bit about just structure and sound design, just because there's so much going on. I think that the beginning could maybe come in a little slower, but that's a structural thing. I think that the mood, energy level, all the core components work really well. The other thing about your approach and kind of approaching it like a trailer on its own terms is great, because you've established a structure and a mood and an energy level and kind of all the core components of what a piece of music needs to do to support this. It would be pretty easy to sort of take a moment here and be like, could you make that more breakery? Whenever we figure out what that is, it's like you've got such a good structure and baseline that it's very easy to provide feedback here, where it's like, hey, can you lay out for that moment? Can you dial, something up there or down there? I think that like, that's how I tend to sort of, when I'm not thinking like a composer, and in my experience, that's kind of more how game developers think about this kind of stuff. And this is a great, like you can hear this and you know exactly where you'd need to go next. So well done. Good. I mean, this is an incredible first stab.
thank you.
Yeah, I really liked the sync points, if that is the technical term for it. So really if you come down, you had a sync point, all the stuff, the shooting, etc. So I was really impressed by that. Really well done, Daniel. Not that I'm any authority to critique your work. Okay, I hope you are not mad at me.
I'm very happy with praise always.
Okay. Cool.
I have to drop off in a
Mhm.
little bit to go pick up my daughter. I'm gonna try to pop back in for the end of it, but I just wanted to make sure that a couple people who couldn't be here, if there is time, that their videos get reviewed also. They're just folks from our community who wanted to be here, but the timing
right.
didn't work out. I just
Can you tell me
posted
which
their-
one? Is that
Yeah,
Asa,
I
for
posted
example?
in
Oh,
in the chat. Asa, Holdfire,
Right.
and some
Holdfire just joined. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool, awesome.
Yep, that is cool. Hey,
Yeah.
everybody. And some, yeah, I saw that. So let's not forget these. Cool. Then who do we have as well? I mean, mine's still here, but I kind of. But yeah, so let's if so Aza's not here, but Holdfire's here. So let's take yours.
We have Scott. Scott's here. Is that yours, Scott?
Yeah, yep, you can hit mine
Oh,
if you
all
like.
right.
Don't you dare skip that one.
I'm not going from top to bottom, don't worry. So let's go with Holdfire and then Scott next. So Holdfire, do you have any words to share with us? If you can talk and have a mic. Well, then let's just have a look at your entry without anything. Oh yeah, can't talk at the moment. Just briefly stopping in before I head out with classmates. All right, appreciate the time. Yeah, so let's just watch. And the ending there.
Nice. This kind of pulse approach is like my gut when I first heard like the pulses at the beginning was like, yeah, that's like a badass way of kind of communicating this sort of confidence that I think is a huge part of this trailer. I think to me, and this is, I think this has often happened to me as a composer getting feedback from developers, and I'm going to probably give something similar here, which is that first, just that like straight pulse. There's something that's so simple and elemental and like, and just confident about it that I think you could keep that going for almost as long as like it overstays its welcome. Like just, I would just try to keep it going until you're like, this doesn't work anymore. Because there's something about it that works. I think, so, you know, to that end, I think mostly this is a structural note just about the way it builds, because I think the way it starts is really interesting. I think the way it actually sort of falls off and you hear that shadow of that pulse is really cool too. And I think that in terms of, you know, thematically and kind of where this builds, it's another piece that I think takes some really interesting risks and reframes the whole perception of this experience to the point where this is like, this to me seems like our central character. This is just like nothing to them, which is cool. I mean, I think anytime you can watch something and have the music tell you something about it and have that be a story, it's done something effectively. You know, I think the question then would be, well, is that the right story? Is that the story we want to tell? But I think this provokes a lot of thought. It's a really interesting approach.
Very cool. Then feel free to say something in the chat. Holdfire. In that case, I will queue up Scott. Scott, what are your thoughts? What were your thoughts?
Oh, okay. So, everyone coming through okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Loud and
Okay,
clear.
so
Very clear.
I didn't watch the original, in fact.
Oh,
so the clip
good.
was
That's
completely my only reference for this. The first thing I noticed, it had great sound elements right to start with. So I wanted to try to make space for the existing sound design. I didn't want to sort of step over that too much. Also, the fact there's a lot of bright sort of neon colors. I wanted to keep it very synthy. I also wanted to sort of tie the music to the action as much as possible. So really hit the cues as closely as I could. The other thing was focus on some of the parkour elements that are in the video. And towards the end, bring in sort of like a galloping element as that charge to the end happens with a big build up. So that was the focus that I brought to it.
That sounds great.
Yeah, okay. Then let's go.
Wow, that's really cool. Great musical sound design elements. The story that I get from this, I don't know, and anyone feel free to jump in and tell me if you, I mean, I may be the only one, but like, to me, the story that this tells me and that this piece of music is communicating to me is that this character is coming in to take something that does not belong to them. This is like a super modern, like heist in a really cool, inventive, thoughtful way. And so I think that's great. I mean, was that part of the process at all?
I don't think it was intentionally. No, not initially.
No, that's okay.
No.
I mean, this is just what I'm getting
But
from it. So
that's a nice outcome. That's a really nice outcome, certainly. Yeah. No, I was curious I haven't done much scoring to trailers, so I was curious about the process of hitting action points, but also making room for sound design and whether that worked or not in this case.
I think it did. I mean, I think the first thing I'll say about it is that it's clear that you're thinking about it, and I really appreciate the fact that you're thinking about it. You are being very thoughtful and very intentional about trying to have the music and the sound design work together to create something that's more than the sum of those parts, which I think is very effective.
Cool.
It's tough because it's like I almost think about like, and you've kind of done it here. It's sort of an oversimplification, but the way that I think about it in an experience like this is the sound design is almost functions like the percussion track.
Exactly.
Which is, which doesn't mean you can't have percussion too, but it's like you kind of want to let it be the driving energy. It's just one approach, really. I want to be careful here about saying that this is how you do it, because it's like nobody really knows. This is the truth.
No.
That's the truth. That's the big reveal here is none of us really know. It's just, I think really like iteration and composing for things like this, it's really more about knowing what to try and what to do next, if that either succeeds or doesn't succeed. So, and I think you've covered a lot of great ground with this. And I love that you're integrating musical sound effects too.
Yeah. Yeah, that
That's-
was actually
that's
quite
really
a lot
cool.
of fun because
Yeah.
the first one happened by accident, and then when I listened to it, I thought, yeah, that's really cool. I'll add that in a few other points. A
Yeah.
little bit of a humorous point, but where just before he fires the missile, I added that extra little sound in, just sort of to add complement the expression on his face. So
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks for that.
Yeah, very nice.
Happy accidents. This
Yeah.
happens sometimes. This is so cool. One thing leads to the next, and then an idea starts rolling. That is great. Okay, we have Antonio here. He has also an entry. Tony Rebelo. Tony, do you want to say something?
Yes, I'm here. Are you guys, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear great.
Okay, so salutations, Joe CORELITZ. I'm from Brazil. And the trailer, it dropped here sometime between, I don't know, March, May, I can't remember now. And by that time, I wasn't even starting as a sound designer. And well, my short story here is that this is the first thing I've ever done for sound design and composition. And
That's awesome.
I did
Congratulations.
the opposite. Sorry?
No, that's awesome. That's great to hear.
Well, actually, this project was, I've done that with my bass teacher. I started as a bass line for the game itself. I saw the challenge on the server, and then I started to compose that as a bass. I was learning the virtual instruments and how can I use everything to make sound and music together, and it turned out to be a awesome project. My teacher even got proud of me because of that.
That is cool.
But it's a tryout, and I did the exact opposite of, I think it's Dani Kapel. He was trying to do something the opposite of the first hyperlight drifter. Is that correct?
In terms of, oh, sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I think Dani did approach this as a game trailer in general. It wasn't about Hyperlight Drifter first or second one.
Yeah.
I don't remember who that was.
No, because I heard someone speaking like they were trying not to look like as if it was the first Hyperlight Drift, the first game. Okay, but my intentions were the exact opposite of that. I was trying to maintain that as much as I could in the universe, using the aesthetics and the visuals, and the fact that I've played through much of the first game. So, well, it felt natural to do such thing. Use the synthesizers as much as I could.
Cool. All right, let's watch it.
I think really nice instincts on this one. I especially love the way you ended it. I think the theme that you establish and it has this. It's a great sound. It has a really good sense of mystery. It's a really effective way to set the scene. Kind of what you did at the beginning. I think by the time we go into the action sequence, I think it's probably worth evolving it a little bit, or maybe even seeing if it works without it, because I think what it does so well in the beginning, which is it establishes kind of a sense of danger and mystery, and it feels dystopian and modern. I think it sort of slows down the combat in a way that it might be worth seeing what happens if you expand on it, or even just take it out or do something different. But I think your instincts about kind of like where to overall, aside from that element, your pacing and the way that you've structured this, like they're spot on. Like I'm really impressed. This is your first approach at doing something like this? Yeah.
Well, I've listened to many things, but let's simplify. This is my first time using Reaper, using virtual instruments, and actually putting in sound effects in a trailer that had its music taken off just for us to work on the part of the music. I actually inserted some some sound effects to accompany the music. Right in that moment you saw first, it was when the logo for the Heart Life machine appears. When it goes back into the scene and the characters just jumping in and start attacking, there is an electric whoosh, let's call it like that, before he lands the first attack, and then all the music comes in.
Cool. Yeah, I'm really impressed. I mean, I think your instincts are great. I think it's just really about sort of smoothing things out, figuring out how to evolve certain things, and I think figuring out kind of where that theme goes and what to do with it would be I think it would make the most sense to start there. But I think it really works.
All right, that's genius to hear. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Tony, I'm also impressed. I know quite well how when I started with all the DAWs, my first DAW was Logic. Just wrapping your head around the concept of tracks and MIDI notes and virtual instruments and the routing and stuff. This is so complex.
Yeah.
And the whole journey, because I live in Switzerland, so Switzerland has a lot of mountains, is kind of like a hike to the mountains, right? You see the top and you start walking. And when you reach the top, you realize you're not even close to the top because you just saw the first kind of slope, and then you're on the slope, and then you see the next one. And so it's this kind of step-by-step approach that you've mastered your first, second step. You see a whole lot more now. You have a big overview of the landscape before you. So you're ready to take the next one and go up that hill. It is a great journey, and you really are on it. That's
This
really
is
cool.
exactly how I feel. It's just a small milestone for now, and then oh my god, there's 5 more mountains to climb.
Yeah, you realize what you don't know yet, right? The next step, exactly. That is cool.
Okay. Thank you all
really
so
nice.
much for this.
Good. Then he asked me to look at. Do we have somebody still in here who provided a version that I don't recognize or can't link? If not, then I will go to the ones that he asked me. So Aza, I've seen her or him. Is it a him or her? Aza? I'm not familiar with foreign names. So I saw the Twitter messages, very enthusiastic about it as well. So let's have a look at Aza's entry next. Ended a bit early.
You know, I think maybe oh, you mean like was the ending cut off? Yeah, I think because most of the others are like 41 seconds.
Right.
So this is one of the things I love about this and doing critiques like this happens in my class all the time. There's often a piece that makes me completely like contradict what I said earlier and totally eat my words. So I've reacted to a few of these, that the drums kind of need to come out through the sound design section. In this one, they don't. And I'm not exactly sure why. Like it'd be hard to do like a whole analysis about it, but there's something about the consistency of this piece, and maybe it's the simplicity. It's drums and a bass pulse that actually helps. It doesn't feel like it fights the sound design. It actually sort of takes us through that section in a way that I think provides a lot of momentum and feels actually really good. The only thing that I think I have two nitpicks about this. One is obvious. It needs an ending. It needs some kind of way of when our character puts the staff back, puts it away right there. We need some kind of like acknowledgement of that, or the piece needs to end in a way that feels intentional. That's sort of an obvious thing. The shift from the intro to the kind of the middle section, I think could be finessed a little bit more. But once it got going, I was like, and Adam jumped in the chat and said, like, this is a bop. And I agree. I mean, there's something about this that just like, it felt good. I didn't feel like it fought the sound design, and it just kind of kept things moving and worked for me.
It was very well timed in the beginning as well. It kind of complemented the sound design and hit the beats of that pretty well as well, I thought.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like this would be really good like level music where you're just like cruising through a level. That's what it feels like, a little more than a trailer, but still good.
Nice one, Aza. All right, then let's move to Son CRS. Is not here, but we can still look at the video. Let's go.
Yeah, it does feel like I'm tracking the chat too, and I agree. Like this feels really badass, like especially in the beginning. Every piece is so different that it's like it's so, it's easy for me to be like, you gotta come out and you have to have a shift here, you have to do drums here, and really like a piece like this makes you realize like everything just needs to be kind of evaluated on its own terms. But I do think we like the bass, kind of like that like drifty, those gritty, drifty like bass notes in the beginning. They work so well for the intro that I think they could stay in potentially. Like I'd kind of want to try to experiment with like, what does it sound like if you take them out and then really dial up the percussion, or what if you left them in and sort of like made them stronger over time. Like I think something just needs to change a little bit, because they sort of they're pretty consistent throughout. But they also like having a through line like that also really kind of demonstrates the sense of confidence, which is a huge part of this trailer, that I think works too. I just want to try to like massage those elements and figure out where the changes need to go and how things evolve. But the overall tone of this is like really rad.
Yeah, it is. I really liked that there was a little video editing going on and added the end screen and then took some time to fade out deliberately. That was quite cool.
I do like seeing the end screen.
All right. So we still have some more to go. I want to be mindful of your time. We are now 1 hour in. I thought this could go on a little bit, like 1.5 hours or something, if that's okay for you, Joel.
Yeah.
Then we still have a little bit of time. So let's take mine next.
Okay.
Because I'm curious. So let's quickly. So I use these challenges. I'm no musician. I'm no composer. I do more sound design. My approach was purely out of the practice, a little bit of using your tools, get out of your comfort zone. Virtual instruments is not something I use daily. I had a really hard time lining up the beats of the trailer to my music. I had a little bit of help from Alex Epton. He kind of showed me how he does it. So I tried to come up with these speed ramps so that I hit the marks, etc. So I struggled quite a lot. And then I thought a little bit about the music, the style of it. And what came to mind for me is kind of the action sequence of this parkour element. And I really wanted at some point to do these, 80s style synth wave musics with that rhythm of so that was kind of my goal, how to bring that in here, and then experimenting with synthesizers, etc. So that was my purely out of experimental joy. And that's it.
Yeah, I think you killed it. That's really good. I think you've approached this like kind of like sound design in a way. I mean, it's musical clearly, but the way that it kind of is communicated in phrases and gestures, it works really well with this. The tempo works really well because there's enough space in that tempo that the sound design can come through. And this is such a great example of tempo. Like, this is a very energetic trailer, but the music communicates intensity. And it's a great complement to what else is going on because the energy's already there. We don't necessarily need more of it, but having more intensity to complement that energy just makes this feel like it brings out another dimension. You've got these cool like arpeggio runs, these flourishes that to me were such a great nod to the kind of like floaty, almost kind of like dancer-like qualities of this. And they brought out just enough of that lightness, that kind of like we've touched on it with a few of the examples that maybe had a little bit of a lighter touch. They were just enough to communicate that this is an easy thing for this character. So there's a lot here, and it's really well balanced and rich. You really did a great job.
Thanks.
Yeah.
As I said, it was kind of like when blind chickens also find a piece to eat. That's a German saying. So, but yeah, I just experimented, and that's cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's clear that you're reacting to your own work. That's one of the hardest things that we all have to do, is we have to react to something we're creating as we're creating it. It's not easy, but as a sound designer, it sounds like you've done it a lot, and you were doing it. I think the fact that you were experimenting with some new tools and maybe a different side of that craft allowed you to actually take that role in a different capacity. And it's clear that you were doing that. You were really aware, I could tell, of what each piece you created brought to this. And it's very thoughtful. It comes through.
Nice. Thank you. Then there's one from Benedict. Let's watch his.
Cool. This one is it's all about energy, and it goes for it, and it works because it has the courage of its convictions. It's like, all right, it's a really well sculpted piece that takes us through this whole fight sequence, and I think it works really well.
Yep. That's great.
Yeah.
Benedict, good job. Also we had then Potato Girl.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. That was
It's
killer.
heavy hitting.
Tempo
Yeah.
increase.
Oh.
This
So
is
what are your
so
thoughts?
carefully composed too. I think what's so clear about this one is that every moment is really like, this is one continuous gesture. And I think that, I think we've heard it. It's so interesting, like I said before, to hear all these back to back. I think sometimes where these can lose a little bit of steam is when and I do this all the time, like when you start looping material, especially if you're doing something that's like a chord progression or a beat or a melody, it's very easy to just like copy and paste it. And this doesn't do that ever. This is one piece that's it's like I said, it's like a continuous gesture that where every single thing that happens is like so carefully considered, that it's like a sentence. It's like a beautifully crafted sentence that just like it just culminates in this like really like intense, awesome moment. And it's really, really well done. I love all those tempo changes. Someone just said that in the chat. I think it's really cool. Really, really good.
Yep. Nice job, Potato. Tony we had, Daniel we had, Hunter, Marianne, Walchak. Let's look at hers.
Great tempo, great sense of intensity. Those sounds and those chords felt, this feels hyper lighty.
Ooh.
Yeah. In a way that doesn't feel like it's just trying to like it. I don't think anything today does this but this feels like it's related to the universe in a new way, which is what we were going for with this. It's great. And it's subtle. Like you hear it and you're like, oh, I hear that and I connect with it and it connects with this, but it's still like, this is such a good example of a piece that supports this so well and uses does just enough, does a few subtle things that you notice and you're like, yeah, I can hear that. And it's not over the top, but it's elegant and it's really tasteful.
So what would you say makes it hyperlight breakery?
That's like the $1 million question, right? It's like it's I don't know. I know it when I hear it.
All right.
I think it's sort of this combination of I think mostly, well, no, it's everything. It's like it's a combination of the actual character of the sound. Generally the sound is, and I think we've been hearing a lot of kind of like pitch instability. I think it works in this universe. There's something about it that just provides this sense of mystery and instability. It feels modern, and yet it feels kind of like also sort of decrepit too, in like a really kind of cool duality. This has that. So some of it's the character of the sound, and some of it is like what the sound is actually doing in the actual notes it's playing. I think one, it breathes. It's spaced out. It has space.
Yeah.
It's not trying to do too much, and it's not too active. And some of it is the actual harmonic character, which is, I guess, for lack of a better word, it feels it has an impressionist quality to it. The chords are kind of expansive and evocative in a way that feels kind of old and new at the same time.
Cool. Well done, Marianne.
Yeah.
The real Delep. Oof,
Yeah,
goosebumps.
chills. Yeah, totally. Like there's something about this one that this is really evocative. This is like it feels related to the series, but this is how to score a trailer. Like this felt like such a well thought out expression of this trailer and creating a sense of intrigue, which I think really is the job of any trailer.
Yeah, very, very well done. Real Delep.
Yeah.
Right, Trace Callahan. You're up, Trace.
This one has some Thomas Newman vibes, I think. another approach that really kind of reframes the experience of the trailer with this feels like a normal day for this character, in a cool way, where it's like, this is just kind of, this is the routine. You know, you wake up and have this battle.
Yeah, I like the the choice of instruments. It gives such a fresh take to everything that we have heard with the bells. It's really something totally different from another perspective again.
Yeah, me too.
That's cool. Really nice, Trace. Uriel Alcaraz. Let's have a look at yours.
Yeah, that was so good. So well timed. And just the sounds and the sense of space. This is a good example of one that I think really works with the sound design, and you know, like kind of it makes space for it. The tempo works, so well thought out in terms of pacing.
Yeah. A lot of thought put into it, the whole
you can tell. Yeah.
Synchronization. Yeah. Then we have Yellow Dog. I know he wanted to come, but I think works and is looking forward to the recording.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, I think, you know, this is definitely a different sound for the series.
Yep.
As a trailer, I think it totally works. I actually don't know if it needs to go up to that like kind of climactic level, though. I think it worked at the sort of like it has, you know, we've got the intro and then it builds on that with the pulse, develops it a little bit. I would be curious to see what it would do if it just stayed there and kind of developed that as much as possible
without the choir.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's nice to hear, because it's like, all right, maybe that was too much, let's try pulling back. That's an easier note to give than let's do more. But this works. I mean, I think it makes you think about, like, and we've kind of already touched on this a little bit, how much does a trailer need? Like, a trailer can stand alone. Like, there have been plenty of times when there's a piece used in a trailer for a game or a movie or whatever that doesn't appear in that game or movie. This could work for that. Like, you know, I did spend a lot of time saying we thought about the series and what sounds breakery and all that stuff. And we kind of landed on an approach where we wanted the trailer to sound like that. But, you know, in a different universe or for a different process, you could just do something that just fits this trailer. And this does that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Really nice, Yellow Dog. Let's get one more. Let's do one from Jake Coronado. And then I think we hit the 1.5 hour mark. Let's go.
This is a great example of a piece that is higher tempo that's totally nails it to me. Like there's something about this frequency range and just this kind of build and approach that just like, I love that it, you know, we're kind of like, we're watching these, and at least I'm watching these, I'm thinking about like stylistically things that seem to work, slower tempos, space, things like that. And then you hear a piece like this that doesn't fit that mold and still works. And works really well. This is like this, you get such different energy from it. It's less like badass energy and more like, that looks so exciting and fun, and like I can't wait for it.
Yeah, it still maintains a sense of danger.
It does.
Yeah, that's really nice. If I counted correctly, we have 1, 2, 3 more to go. So it would be kind of a shame if you still have time. If it's okay for you, we could look at these 3 still, so we don't leave anybody out.
Make time for a few more minutes. Yeah,
that is cool. Thank you very much. All right, get to the Choppa. That is your clip.
This one is like this feels like an action sequence, like in a really cool way, in a modern way that feels specific to this trailer. But yeah, this almost feels like this is like a cinematic underscore to this scene.
What is the difference for you for a cinematic underscore versus for game trailer?
That's another thing. It's hard to answer. You kind of know it when you hear it. I think to me, this feels like the score for, and I mean this as a compliment. Like, this feels like if this were, a 40-second scene from like a longer movie or an episode or whatever, this is the underscore to that scene. With a trailer, it's it's like, to me, this could definitely be tweaked and adjusted to be adapted as a trailer, but to me, a trailer is kind of like one continuous thought, where this actually feels like it's almost attached to a larger whole.
Okay, yeah, get it. It's a real cool scene as well. Get to the Choppa. Such a cool name. Julian Ferreira.
There is like I've got the chat open, and some of you are saying that like they're about the brass stabs, or Adam was talking about the brass stabs being emotional, and I agree. Like, there is an emotion in this one that kind of gives you this sense of intrigue, and it turns this visceral experience into an emotional experience, which is a really cool thing to pull out of it. feels like revenge. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a very cool combination between those brass elements and the synth rhythm that goes on underneath.
Yeah.
That was also quite nice. Cool. Very good job, Julian. Then Stone from the Sky, which is our last entry. It was a quite a popular one. It's the first time I think I had to, because we do these all into a compilation so that we can put it out and put it on Twitter and celebrate us a little bit. This was the first one where I had to do 5 compilations because I couldn't shrink them down and make everything in one big 20-minute video. That is really cool. So it was quite popular, this challenge. Alrighty, Stone from the Sky, you're up.
That was great. Really good mix too. Everything was super clear. And
yeah, this is something that really impresses me, that it kind of tiptoes around the sound design without it being obviously audible. It's just natural. That is crazy.
It's really well done mix. Yeah. And that just, I mean, it goes to show just how important that component is when you're working with sound design, that, you know, such a crucial element in an experience like this. Yeah, like really great tone and sense of confidence, and in a different way. This is like, I mean, it's got a badass sense of confidence in a way that also feels like really kind of off the cuff and cool. Like this is a little bit more kind of like detached. It brings all these different kind of subtle shifts, bring different perceptions and interpretations to how this character feels about this situation.
Yep. Very well.
Yeah.
Then we have come to the end of everything we had to show in our little community regarding the Hyperlight Breaker Music Challenge.
That was a lot of fun. Thank you for sharing them all.
Whew, that was quite a session.
Yeah, indeed.
Thanks so much, Chris, for running this, and Joel for sharing your expertise and giving feedback.
Thanks, EE, for setting it up and for having me.
How do you want to do it with the hoodie? How are we going to do the giveaway?
Oh yeah, so Joel, you have to pick your favorite.
I should have taken notes. Do I have to do it right now?
No, you don't have to do it right now. We can
Okay.
announce it later.
Cool.
Alrighty. Yeah, I sent E
That's gonna be
the
tough.
link, I think, to all the entries on the Dropbox, so you can have a look as well, and then we can announce it at some point.
Okay.
That is great.
I say thanks to the Heart Machine folks for showing so much support to this little community we have going on.
This is a
And all
great
the-
community.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, for all the time. Obviously, you have things to work on and your lives as well. So it's really, really great. We appreciate the support and the feedback and just the really positive vibes. That is really great. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, guys. Really motivating to watch all of these. Really motivating.
Yeah,
And
I
Joel,
wouldn't have.
awesome. Yeah.
Much.
I wouldn't have known about this if not for the Heart Machine Discord. So thank you for making me aware to that. This is really fun.
Cool.
Thanks for participating, everybody.
Yeah. Thank
Means
you.
a lot to us.
Cool. let's see if we can do anything in the future as well, just to have some fun together.
Yeah.
And post things and talk about it. That's what how we can get better in the end, right? Listening to feedback, experimenting, trying a new take, iterating, and that is really the core of the thing. Cool. Then thank you very, very, very much for your time, everybody. I wish you a pleasant Friday evening in my case, or Friday end of day or morning, and a happy weekend. And then we see each other at the next Sound and Music Challenge.